Janinne the food gypsy. How about that?
So something.
So, world, we're live. And this is typical Mike fashion. We just roll with things. So, any of the lives that we've done, Julie has not been able to make. She is the retreat goddess. She is a part of the core team, and she is helping to bring it all together and following events as well. I believe I have her searching for a castle in Europe currently, just for shits and giggles. And as everyone knows, this is Janinne, which we'll label her the food goddess. That's it. How about that? We'll go the food goddess. Um, and we'll run with this. So we wanted to give Julie a chance to introduce herself again. And Janinne was available. So we brought Janinne in because everybody wants to hear about more food. We always want to hear about food. We how could we not? So
And I can always talk about food. So there's synergy there. So that's perfect.
this is a win.
Always.
So go ahead, Julie. Let's give you the floor to make your introduction to the world.
All right. Well, hello, world. Yes, I'm Julie, the retreat goddess, but I'm also part of this amazing team. And what a gift to find in a client somebody who has now become a partner for a vision that is getting bigger and bolder and more beautiful by the day. That's what it feels like to partner with this team and to be on this journey with Michael and everyone. We found each other on Clubhouse. What a great space. Yes, we did.
We did. We actually did.
Yeah. And everything just opened with ease after that. And I love being a part of this journey because I'm so committed to what is possible when an intimate group of people join together away from their everyday world, because that unlocks so much possibility to do such deep personal work and to connect in new and different ways. And the outcomes are often even surpassing what one even expects going into a retreat or some sort of intimate event like we're planning. And so it's with that spirit that I am relentless in helping us bring this vision to life, to find the right location because it matters so much. And yeah, castle in Europe, why not go there when we take this to Europe, right? Because we get to do transformative work in places that nourish that make it possible, that align with that. And once you secure that location, all the other details can be woven together. And we're seeing this come together with the team that we're bringing together, the different modalities of healing. And I want to touch the food because that's Janinne's role. And oh my goodness, right? Talk about aligning teams and aligning all of the elements to create the most transformative experience that any executive would find anywhere. I promise you it's going to be right here with what we're doing. And when my camera. Hi again.
There you go. You froze a little bit. Look.
That's okay.
Better your face freezing than mine. So I mean that's the win here, right? Like we're just going to be practical with this.
Okay.
The world of technology.
Oh my gosh, it's hysterical, Julie. It's happening. It's freezing up right now. Exactly what I'm like. Oh my gosh, I want to ask you so many questions about how the place helps the retreat. Like, since you are the retreat goddess and you've been doing so much of this, I'm sure you have to be able to have seen, like, when you get a small group together, like 30 to 40 people together, what happens when it's in this beautiful environment that pushes the envelope? I would love to hear more about that.
Well, because when you're together like that, that's where you create safety. That's where you create this really sacred space where trust automatically develops, right? Where deep connection happens and you suddenly realize that you can be messy together, right? You can cry, you can scream, you can laugh, you can sing, whatever it is, it's safe. And it becomes more possible when you're in a space where you get to focus only on what it is you're up to, right? You don't have outside influences, you don't have circumstance showing up. And we could talk forever about living a life simply reacting to circumstance. We are shifting that in this event, right? We are shifting that by becoming so intentional about what we choose every single day, how we choose to be, And that's what becomes possible in these intimate settings. It's shift, right? It is transformation. And what happens after that, and that's really what we're a part of creating, is how we take that transformation in this event and then allow our attendees to take it back into their lives, into their workspaces, and we support them to continue to make that shift happen. That's the difference with what we're doing here, and what I am committed to as the retreat designer, because I know it's so important. Because you help someone shift and you leave them alone, forget it. They're going to go right back into that drift, and we're not about that happening. So that's what we're up to, is we're going to help you shift, and then we're going to support you so that you continue to grow and shift and heal, and you bring that back to your organization. And look what happens when you stay in that space, and then you allow your team to transform and shift and grow and heal. We are shifting entire organizations, everyone.
And I'm going to chime in a little bit here, because there's two things I wanted to say. One about the venue itself, and Janinne has been there herself as well. That there's something special about this venue. This venue captures it's withstanded the test of time, right? Like, it was open 285, 290 years ago. It's gone through the Revolutionary War. It's gone through the Civil War. It's gone through all these major shifts throughout the course of history in this country. Right. So keep in mind, 285 years, 290 years in this country is old. Right. It's not like Europe, where, they have freestanding buildings that have been there for thousands of years, or the Middle East or anywhere else. This is old culture in this country. And this is the transition of time. And you actually, I just remember going back with Janinne and having her talking to everybody and actually walking through the building and saying, that looks like that's one of the original ones. And there was so much excitement around it, because like, you feel the energy flowing through it. You feel the excitement. You feel the passion. You feel the shift, right? And, the other part I'll talk about is the follow through, right? That's something that we're very big on. And it's something that when I wanted to move into this space, which is whatever, it's a hybrid space that I've always been interested in, but like, there has to be a way to follow through, right? To support people when they go back to their normal environment. So we've created ways to continue that safe space, continue the camaraderie, the bond, the trust, to keep that circle in place, so that when people go back to their workplace, we know there's going to be obstacles. We know that there's going to be this shift within them personally, but how do they reflect that outwards to be able to make that impact within their organizations? And we're going to be there side by side with them to help support that. And it was a very important part of everything that we're doing, is to be able to carry it forward, right? To really amplify this impact that we're looking to have in this ripple effect. Go ahead, Janinne. I like when you ask questions.
Oh, good, because I have them. Because one of the things that Julie had just said was, it's going to get messy. And in my own world, I'm like, right, you can't really get quote unquote messy in the corporate world. Like, at your regular job, it's very hard to get messy. As you say, there's 500 million things coming in that you have to deal with. So to be able to just take a moment, get out of the corporate location, and start struggling. Like, right now, we live in this hugely messy world, and there are a lot of things to realign, to get us to our full potentials. I love that idea. Are you able, Julie, do you feel comfortable talking a little bit more about that?
Oh, absolutely. Because you can't shift, you can't make change in your life if you don't figure out that you have to shift your way of being. And in order to shift your way of being, you've got to look at what's been showing up to keep you stuck in the current ways of being, right? And in this crazy country we live in, and often around the world, we hear do be have, or have do be, right? And all that back and forth. If I have this and I'm going to do this, then I will be happy. But guess what? It's really the other way around. We have to be different. We have to find other ways of being before we can make different choices, accomplish different things. And then finally, yes, of course, we are going to have all the feelings that we want, right? The joy, the connection, and the beauty. But shifting the way of being, you have to untangle what has been holding you back. And sometimes it's rooted in trauma. Sometimes it's rooted in old scripts. Sometimes it's rooted in some way that we thought we had to run businesses with fear and exploitation and not owning problems and mistakes as they happen, but rather pointing fingers and trying to hide it away and thinking that we have to judge and make everybody bad and wrong, right? It's all of what created that has to be undone, and often it gets messy, right? What if somebody is leading in that way because they felt that they couldn't access a more human, vulnerable and authentic way of living because they were taught by a parent or a teacher that they couldn't express emotion, or they couldn't ever be wrong, or else they were going to be in trouble, right? So we get into the nitty-gritty of all that, and that's what we have to heal. It's about healing, and in order to actually transform, they're completely intimately connected.
I love that. And Mike, can I follow up?
Yeah, you want to go back to one of the questions, or the
No, I
last?
just want to, like, one of the things she was saying was, where are they learning some of the leadership behavior? Well, it's right there in the same corporation. So to be able to take a step out and be able to see it with new eyes, and to be able to find new solutions by coming together with like-minded people who are looking for the very same solutions, and to be able to create that creativity in that space, it sounds amazing.
And again, right, like there's societal, there's generational trauma, there's stigmas, there's labels. Like we can deconstruct all of this, right? And we can really get in there and look at organizations from a holistic approach, and look at the ways that um they've been shifted, or they've been directed to be, right? And a lot of it has to do with public companies and having shareholders and having to answer to that bottom line always first.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of organizations and a lot of shareholders and a lot of institutions that invest in these companies don't realize how much the overall happiness of the team around these companies has to do with the bottom line, right? And if you take a company, any company, and there are proven stats, there are proven studies. I do not have them in front of me, but just Google search, they are all there. When you have a company that is happy being there, and your culture is your people, so never mistake that. It's
Mm-hmm.
not processes, it's not foosball tables, it's not ping pong tables. It is your people. And when your people are happy and feel valued, seen, and heard, your numbers always exceed expectations.
Always.
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 Because people will live and die by where they spend the majority of their time.
Mm-hmm.
People are taking time away from their families, away from people that they love. And sometimes they're hiding from the people they love, but that's a different story.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's where people spend most of their time is at work. And if you can breed happiness in that environment and value people and really show them that they are heard and seen, and create this place that they are self-inspired and self-empowered, innovation spurs, all these great ideas, and this passion comes from it, right? And that's when the magic starts, right? That's when these organizations level up in every way possible and solve problems that nobody thought was solvable, and create solutions and pivot and really become this living, breathing organism that organizations are. And these events, why they're geared towards corporate, is because I can focus on individuals. We can focus on bringing in just anyone who wants to be a part of this, and there's plenty of people that do.
Yeah.
But we are looking at organizations because that's where we want to impact. Mm-hmm. So many people are unhappy at work. So many people feel unseen, not heard, and not valued, that it's time to shift that before everybody leaves work, right? Like this mass exodus, this great resignation, which I don't believe in. I believe that it's just our chance to reimagine the workplace and really come together with a camaraderie, and this unconditional understanding and loving environment to where we can breed success for everyone that's involved. And if that means that someone leaves and goes to another company, we celebrate that move for them, right? Because there's always somebody else who wants to get a new start at your company, right? This isn't You don't hold people hostage. You don't lock them in. All you want to do is see people succeed, and that success follows you. I think
Exactly.
I'm off my
Exactly.
soapbox.
Oh, I'm going to jump on there with you, Michael, because I was at a networking breakfast yesterday morning, and the host who I was supporting was talking about his new role in publishing a local newspaper, and that he took it over from the previous owner very recently, and that owner had actually stopped printing the paper because his staff, after they came back from shutting down for a while due to COVID, they didn't want to come back. And the way he described it was, well, they were making more money on unemployment. And I could feel the energy in that room be so judgmental, right? Oh, who are they are they lazy, right? And I could just feel all their thoughts, right? And I wanted to shout, no, we've got it wrong. They deserve to choose money that's going to help them to support their family. And if you can't pay people enough that they feel valued, that they can care for their family, what are you doing owning a business anyways? That's how I feel about this. I'm that passionate, and it makes people uncomfortable, right? Because this is anti the capitalistic notion that we have subscribed to for so long. And I'm not saying that without all the data that backs it up, right? Because Michael, you just nailed it. When we value who we have on our team, we treat them as just amazing, exquisite humans who get to soar and become the brightest versions of themselves. And if that means they leave, hooray, we get to celebrate that, like you said. And I'm done with this out of date model where we feed the bottom line on the backs of our teams. That is not the way to do it anymore. And people know they need to shift, right? These organizations, they're feeling it in the results they're seeing. And so we're here to say, guess what? We can show you what's possible. If you are really serious about continuing in the business that you are, then you can achieve the shift that brings you into this new era of connection and true team and everybody rising together. It is possible.
So, real quick before Janinne goes to the next question, because I absolutely love her questions. Um, so, when it comes to Giannis, I've known Giannis for a while, right? And he's asked many questions, and I've let us run with this a little bit because it's a little off topic, but a little tied in as well. And the two that are resonating with me the most is this one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, it's triggers, right? Coworkers can easily trigger us, easily show us what we have not addressed for ourselves, right? But part of these in workshops / retreats that we're bringing to HR is to help HR understand how to be there for those people in the workplace that need that extra assistance, that need to be there for them, right? Because why are you going to let quality workers or quality people or quality teammates walk out the door and have to start the whole retraining process again, which costs a fortune, when all you have to do is work with your people and they're going to be so loyal to you. They're going to feel seen and heard and valued, and they're going to overperform, and then they're going to inspire others to do the shift also. This healing journey needs to happen one person at a time throughout organizations, right? And this is going to give HR executives, directors, whatever they might be, a chance to really experience certain things for themselves, to be able to be honest with themselves about why they're really there. And as far as those traumas, yeah, that's part of this, is all being aware and having compassion for your fellow human being, right? And being open and honest and transparent to the point that let's create this space. And I'm going to use safe, right? Because everybody feels not emotionally safe or psychologically safe at work these days, because we've all been triggered in the last 3 or 4 years with everything going on, right? No matter what side you're on, no matter anything you choose, we're all getting triggered in different ways. So if you want to go to that safe card, right? We don't feel safe anymore. We don't feel heard or valued or seen. How do you shift that? By making people feel heard, valued, and seen, by listening to them, by being there for them, by giving them a way to work on themselves while being able to put it back into the workplace. And that energy, the self-compassion, the self-love, it all starts with self, right? And when one person starts healing self, it radiates outwards towards everyone else. The other thing that he asked is this, right? And Giannis being in Europe, it's a different environment, right? So Europe seems to be a little bit harsher and a little bit colder when it comes to emotions in the workplace, right? A little bit more rigid, a little bit more straightforward, but they also have a lot more guidelines as far as you're not working overtime. When you're done, right? You're done for the day. You don't check your phone at night. You're not asked to be on your laptop on the weekends. You take the whole month of August off, right? Like you get to enjoy these things, right? Like it's not the rat race in the US, but it's also not the warm and interpersonal relationships as well. We're all human beings. We're all made up of emotions. That's why you're emotional, because everyone is so emotional and uncomfortable right now, and until we are willing to work on ourselves and reflect that outwards, it's not going to shift. And this is an opportunity to start it at the workplace for people. Off the soapbox again.
And I want to jump in. Just something that I think got touched on a couple times, especially Julie, and I think Mike also touched on it. You had mentioned our system, our capitalistic system. I just want to underline this way of valuing and seeing, and I think everyone has said it is financially positive. Like it has shown itself again and again. Like as you had talked about turnover is such a huge issue for so many people, and it's so expensive. If your team loves being part of the team, your turnover is less. It's just smaller. It's percentage. And as you've said, there's so many stats out there. But similarly, by focusing on your teams, you are increasing the bottom line. It is capitalism almost at its best, right? Like I keep thinking of Patagonia. Like there are just so many not so many, but there are certainly companies to look at who really value their team and have done stellarly, right? Really have tons of profit and are doing well, and their team loves being there. And that's what we're trying to, I believe, that's what we're trying to infuse in more companies. Let everyone, if everyone is happy and heard and fulfilling their potentials, the sky is truly the limit. There's so much that can be done.
Yeah, I mean, you said so much there, and you're a lot more condensed than either of us are. You're a lot more succinct in, I think, how it goes. My passion gets the best of me a lot of times, and I overtalk. Not that anyone that knows me has ever experienced it, but it really is, right? Like when companies live into their mission statement and live into their values, it inspires the teams to live into their individual values. And it brings this alignment within an organization, which is why Patagonia is able to, do those amazing things where they take Black Friday sales and they donate all of it to giving back to the planet, right? Like they live and breathe it every day. And when you have that environment and a company actually knows what their mission statement is and lives into it, it shifts everything, right? And I've worked within many organizations in many industries, and truth to the matter is it very rarely gets trickled down what the values of the company are other than onboarding. Oh, by the way, this is our mission statement, but that's not what you're going to experience working here. So just know that. And that's where I think the disconnect is, right? How do we create ways to bring true DEI to the workplace, right? Real equality, real inclusion, real equity, have everybody sit at the table and really have a voice. Well, everybody wants to work from the top down on this and put these big flags in the ground. We're creating this amazing DEI way of doing things now. But I promise you, people that are getting hired today have no idea what that policies are. Mm-hmm. People that are getting hired at these jobs, when they go into their onboarding, they don't feel heard, seen, and valued any different. Mm-hmm. Because the purpose is there, the intent is there, but the follow through isn't, right? And a lot of these organizations want to keep everything in house, right? And that's where I think some of it is wrong and goes wrong, because you can't put all this pressure on your HR part of your organization and expect them to be able to support an enormous shift within the organization.
Right.
they need outside support. And that's where we want to expose them to ways to create that outside support for them. We want to be able to help these organizations shift in that way.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the intent is good. I believe the intent is pure. I just don't believe the follow through is there because they don't have the resources available to them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That totally makes sense. And I think that's what the issue is, right? Everybody, like, I can't say everyone. I would have to say like 90%. Of course, everyone wants their team to be happy. Like, really, if you sit down, even if you don't know any better, the numbers follow through, right? If your team is unhappy, your company is going down. There's nothing to talk about, right? Like, if people are miserable, they're not making as good of decisions, they're not being as creative. There's so many trickle down issues that happen. So everyone would say, yes, we want our team happy. And I love your point, Mike and Julie. The point is, right, the resources need there. Like, if everybody wants that to happen, they just have to get from A to W. Let's not pretend it's B, right? It's not going to be B. It's going to be a few steps down the road. But to get there and to navigate that and to have the support to do that, right? Everyone wants it, right? Everybody wants their company to be great and to be fulfilling and their teams fulfilling their potential.
Are you taking me to school?
Hello.
Me and Janinne, who are supposed to be alone in the house, are like looking around like, somebody here? Like, did somebody show up? It's okay. It happens.
I literally thought, Mike, I was like, oh, you added someone to the conversation. I was like, okay,
Right.
beautiful.
We're increasing secretly. Like, this is the clandestine operations of the live episode.
That's right.
By the way, and everyone has found that with Zoom, right? That's another challenge HR has to deal with, is that Zoom and dealing with people off site, right? Everyone does in fact have things pulling at them outside of work. We have our families, like, right, when my kids were home from school on Zoom, it was such a challenge, and people still today have that very same challenge, right? It hasn't gone away yet.
That's right. And we better get comfortable with, my little girl coming in and needing an emotional support moment with mom when she's on Zoom. And guess what? That makes me a whole person, right? And I would rather employ somebody who knows that they're a whole person and give them permission to be the mom, the professional, right? The daughter caring for an ailing parent, right? I want them to show up with all of that. Because if I ask them to deny a part of themselves, who am I as that leader, right? So yeah, my teenager gets to knock on the door while dad's showering saying, hey, are you going to take me to school on time, right? That's life. That is life.
Exactly.
And we're here for it. And that's what we want to happen everywhere.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've been living that way for a while, right? I've been working from home and working remotely and running my own business as a solopreneur or an entrepreneur or many companies that I've built over the last 14 years, right? So when my daughter was an infant, my oldest, Michelle, I used to do calls with the UN, and I talk about this all the time. I used to do calls with the UN on Skype because at that time that's all we had was Skype, and I would have my toddler or infant, depending on how small she was, me wearing my pajamas and doing my calls, and there was a few times that I got questioned for what I was doing. And my answer was simple. My answer was, there is a very large time difference, right? Because the office I was working with was in China. And if you want me to show up and be present, then this is how I show up. Because one, I am not waking up at 2 a.m, showering, getting dressed up for one call, then going back to sleep. Not happening. And if my infant, my baby needs me, male, female, no matter what I am in this world, I'm a parent first, right? So she's on my lap. You just got to deal, right? And it was met with very uncomfortable conversations at times. It actually excluded me from business at times. And now being a solo parent, right? Literally solo parent, where I have to be mother and father to my kids, and 24/7 I'm a parent. I'm okay with people excluding me for who I am. I've grown into this space where I'm very comfortable being who I am. I realize the value I have. I know I deserve to be seen and heard today, right? And this is something I've grown into and evolved into, right? So I'm not worried about outside opinion anymore, but I also don't work within an organization where there is these structures, right? And I probably would have, and maybe would still be, if there was this type of situation to where there was a lot more compassion, understanding, and I was able to be valued and seen and heard for who I am as a whole person. You want to know why we're losing people at work? You want to know why people are leaving? Because they don't feel like they're able to be their whole selves. Because they're being on these conference calls, on these Zooms all day, all night, working remotely, having to go back to the office, but maybe their kids have to be home. So then they're having to choose between taking care of their kids or going to the office. Male, female, doesn't matter who it is, right? You're putting people in a situation where they have to make a choice. And I promise you, people are always going to choose what's most important to them. And if you're not positioning yourself as an employer that's empathic, that's compassionate, that's there for somebody, you are not going to be most important to them. That's just a reality. Because somebody can go be a freelancer today with half the stress, work half the time, and make the same money, if not more. Mm-hmm. Because they will make their own value. And that's the difference, right? And, you know, with all these different healthcare options, right? Being able to go do these things when unemployment was paying better, people were still working on the side, right? Like they started building their own businesses. But what most people should be doing is always be building their own businesses on the side. And the company should support that, because if they're living in a passionate way, they're going to carry that to the workplace. Like, you want the best of people, then let them be their best. Let them be their truest self to themselves, and then it's going to reflect that way to the whole company. And it's going to bring this inspired, invigorated, empowered energy into the workplace that's going to shift people right where they sit. Mm-hmm. Sorry, another soapbox.
That's okay. That's okay. You know, I knew when my dad was dying that I was going to take care of him, you know, and I'm thankful that I had already started my business and I had the freedom. Because I remember saying often, if I was still in my corporate job, I couldn't have done this. But yet I would have always chosen that anyways. And what would have been the consequences, right? Because I was in a very dehumanizing environment in my last corporate job. And so how do we as organizations really shift? So you have a bright and performing employee who suddenly says, my parent is dying and I have to take care of them. So how do you become the organization that says, we're going to take care of you so you can take care of your parents? That's the world I want to live in. And that's why I'm part of this team, because we are going to help create that.
And then how do you support them with the grieving process? Right? Like, how do you support them with the grieving process and through it? Because that impacts and ripples everyone that they touch in an organization. Mm-hmm. And if you're not able to come in and say, we have these resources for you that will help you get through this because we care, then it's time to look for those. Because I promise you that investment will get returned 10 to 20 fold. Because that employee will never walk away if they have that choice. If you are truly there and support them through that process, that is, they will be loyal to you because you're being loyal to them. Another soapbox.
No, and rightfully so. So my father has also passed away, and there are, thank God, there are so many people whose parents are still alive and they haven't gone through it, but it is a very difficult time. And because my father passed away, I definitely spoke about it with different people. And there are companies out there who recognize, hey, this is a short term, this is short term, right? There is, right? This is a life situation. It's not going to happen for 20 years. There's a certain amount of time. And those friends of mine whose companies supported them, like literally I had people say, oh, they've always said, right, whatever you need to do, go ahead and do it. And you'll come, and the job will always be here, right? The job's here, do what you have to do and come back when you're ready. And I was always very impressed, right? Those are the companies that, right? And my friends who were there, like they've been there now 20 years. They're not jumping. They're not jumping. They're like, where would I get this? Right? Someone gets sick. Someone does this. Someone does that. Gets pregnant. Whatever the life change is, knowing that your company's like, we got you. We got you. We value you as an employee. We need you, and everyone goes through things. It's right. It's a beautiful thing. And Julie, as you said, with that company that you knew wasn't going to support you, right? You didn't stay in the end, right? Clearly, right? Who stays? You're like, oh, you don't see me as a person. You see me as a cog. Well, if I'm a cog, I'll go somewhere else. Like, I get that.
I don't know.
Okay, and while
Janinne,
we're at it,
no.
I will add, and you better create spaces for breastfeeding moms to pump. Okay, I'm just going to lay it out there, right? Don't tell them to pump in the bathroom. You create a space where they get to do that. That's also part of supporting the whole person. Thank you for that moment.
A couch might be more comfortable. Just saying.
Yeah, that makes sense. I see. You're not the only one who gets on soapboxes, Mike.
No, I'm not. I'm not. And that's the whole reason that the team's together, because we all have our own soapboxes. We all have our own passion-driven purpose, right? We all are living into it to the best that we can, right? Like, I've never met anyone that's more passionate about retreats and what goes into them than Julie. I've never met anyone in the whole planet more passionate about food and what it means and how it impacts, right? Because again, when Janinne talks about food, it's about the impact that comes from it, and she laughs, but it's true. Like, she makes her challah bread every Friday, and I'm getting pictures, and I'm excited for her because I know what the result is going to be, right?
Oh my God, Julie, you're going to get pictures now. I'm sorry. Mike has now included you every Friday.
You better.
Right. Like, but she sends me pictures of the chocolate chip one, and she's explaining why her son likes that and how he asked for it. And that's the passion, though, right? Like, it's that is why we're here, is to share this passion, to help others find theirs, to help invigorate workplaces with it. Because when you bring it into a workplace, it is the best contagious thing that you can have, because it is going to bring everyone up. It's going to light everyone up. It's gonna just take over the company like a tidal wave, right? When you allow people to be themselves, when you allow the Janinnes of the world to bring pictures of their food that they're so passionate about to the workplace, when you allow the Julies of the world to come to the workplace and say, these are facilities and places I've been looking at, right? And this is so powerful, and this is why it inspires me, because of the history and the energy and where it is. When you have a person like me and you welcome them into the door and say, do 20 things, just focus on why you're here, what you're doing here, rather than saying, don't do anything on the side and give us your everything. Because the minute you start doing that today in a world where there's options, you've already lost a person. You've already lost people. Because everybody has a passion. Everybody has their own time. Everybody has their own space. And we need to start respecting that. We need to start encouraging that. We need to start really helping that and pushing that, so that people can look for where their passion is. Because the minute that they find it, they're going to bring it with them, even if it's to work, and even if it means that on the weekends you can't get a hold of them because they're out doing whatever makes them happy. But if that's not their job, if they don't have their job over the weekend, then don't try to reach out to them. Let them live their life. And this is what makes me happy. This is my passion, is bringing this to the world, inspiring people to make this impact and ripple within their organizations, to be able to breathe this huge inspired group and organization to the highest levels that anyone could ever imagine, because they do it in the right way. They do it to empower each individual.
I'd be curious if people who are watching start checking out LinkedIn profiles, and what are the words under those names? How do people describe what they do, especially leaders within organizations? Because I looked at one recently based on a conversation I was having with a small company that wanted to start doing events because attrition, right? They were losing employees. And I wasn't about to just show up and say, oh, you can have this fun event and feed them and they'll be fine. No, I said, actually sign up for this event that we're doing with Aligning Teams. So send your leaders here, but let's really talk about, how do you want to shift as an organization? I went to the profile of the CEO on LinkedIn. Shareholders were mentioned first and employees last. And that spoke everything to me. That was enough for me to know how much that company, if they truly wanted to shift, had to shift.
Mm-hmm.
What does your LinkedIn profile say, people?
Yeah, when shareholders are first and employees are last, there's an issue, because what usually happens in that scenario is the shareholders usually start disappearing and the employees are already gone. They're already checked out. There's options.
Yep.
The world's full of options now. You can go online and find a job anywhere you want in the world. Like, there's full of options, and they're remote. A lot of these jobs are remote, which means you can go get a job in Australia and sit at home and work opposite hours and spend all day with your kids if you want. Like, I mean, the options are there, right? Like, we can't fool ourselves anymore. We can't do the status quo. We can't, hold people back and expect them to be loyal to us. Everybody wants to complain that their employees aren't loyal. When's the last time you thought about not firing somebody who wasn't doing their job? When's the last time you thought about putting time and energy into them to see why they weren't inspired to do their job anymore?
Mm-hmm.
What's really going on with them? Why do you think employees aren't loyal? Because employers aren't. And there's loyalty from the employer side. The employee will always be loyal. Always. They'll take less money to stay at a company that values them any day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many more soapboxes people want to hear from me.
But it's all true, right? That's 100% true. In my own experience, the people I know as well as myself, although I have to admit, when I worked in the corporate world, I asked for raises a lot. I was like, here's what I'm doing. Here's my performance. I want the raise. But if the company who was like, we love you and we gave you the raises and we're in trouble now, everyone has to work together. I would like, if they're your friend, like, I don't know how much we talk about friends or not friends, but it all comes down to people. So if the people I'm working with, I am friends with, right, there is a loyalty there. I'm not just jumping ship just for money. The only reason why I would jump ship is something has disconnected, right? There's some kind of disconnect. I'm not being valued, or I'm not, or something is wrong. And if no one comes to me and is like, hey, what's going on here, then I'm starting to look around. Okay, right? This somehow the ideas are no longer aligned. I need to find some place where I'm aligned with. I get that.
Yeah. And when you rely on everyone and you create a safe space, that's where innovation happens. That's where creativity blooms, right? That's where all the solutions suddenly appear. And like you said, Janinne, everyone links arms, right? And works together to solve whatever it is. But if you don't have that kind of organizational culture, then you're going to sink. You are.
And it's bigger than putting a suggestion box out, right? and then getting 20 responses anonymously. So if you do this theory and you want the suggestion box, and your organization, your employees don't feel safe, don't expect to get any one real answers. Don't expect to get any real solutions, and never expect to get a name attached, because it's just not going to happen. But if you have this environment where it's safe, if they feel heard and seen and valued, they're going to say, I like this idea. What do you guys think? It doesn't need to be a suggestion box, because it will just be known that you're heard. It'll be known that you can share your opinion and be there, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just thought about maybe an episode of the Jetsons when I was a kid, that there was a suggestion box and robots were dropping answers in. But anyway, that's just what I thought of.
I have a real life example of that, Michael.
Go ahead.
One of my previous corporate jobs years ago, I was sitting in the big tall towers in the middle of the city, right? And it was an automotive company, right? And I'll say that much. And there was in existence a suggestion program where people out in the production environment they would see a problem and submit a solution for that. And the program then actually rewarded them financially for that, based on the return of that change, right? And the value of that. Well, my predecessor in the role I was in didn't want to pay much time to it. He just thought, no, that's just more of an irritation to me. And I took a very different approach to that. And I actually started researching those suggestions and found the solutions that were working, right? Because I brought in all the right people to evaluate it, the decision makers who could put it into action. And I got to be the one that called the original person who made that suggestion and say, we have just found that this works. We are implementing it, and you are going to receive a cash reward. Those were some of my favorite conversations, because in those moments, they finally did. They were heard, they were valued, they were appreciated, they felt part of the team because they had an idea and the leader said yes.
And I love that on so many levels. And one of the levels I love it on is one that Mike had just suggested, was you're not going to get anonymous suggestions if someone's going to get a monetary reward, right? And I actually even like the idea, quite honestly, I do this a lot in general, is that anyone who gives a response should get a reward, right? Even if we couldn't implement that and save $50,000, but here's a $5 gift card to Starbucks because you bothered. Thank you. And again, that will ensure people are writing their names on them because, and if you don't get your $5 gift card. But that positive reinforcement, let's make sure people, we want them engaged, and there's a positive reinforcement for stepping up and being willing to open your mouth. That's my own opinion, because if you give them a negative reward for opening their mouth, then therefore they're not doing it the next time.
I also think that has a lot to do with the masculine and feminine energy, right? Which is very misconstrued, and people think it has to do with a gender or a gender role. It has nothing to do with a gender role, right? Balance is having both within an individual, male, female, whatever it may be. Everybody has masculine and feminine energy. For me, masculine is that driven, bottom line only type mentality, and feminine energy is that more gentle, everybody's seen, heard, nurtured. And when you have a person who is either living in their feminine or living in balance, again, male, female, whatever, those solutions come to the table, right? And those really thought out plans where people can be valued, heard, and seen. And again, that brings it back to healing each individual, right? Working with each individual to find their own personal balance. And again, that's what one of our missions, right? With aligning teams starts with aligning individuals. And it's all a piece of the puzzle. I think we should wrap it up because we're getting close to 50 minutes already.
Yep.
And I'm losing my attention span. So, if I'm losing it, we're in trouble.
Well, then we'll leave it with this. If you desire change for yourself and for your organization, connect with us, because we're going to bring you into the most transformational experience you've ever had. And we're going to show you how to take that change back and transform your entire organization.
Yes, exactly. Janinne, any closing statements?
Wait,
I think you should do a post tomorrow with the pictures of the challah, because I'm telling you, it's like one of the happiest pictures I get on a Friday. It's like, ooh, she put chocolate chips in it this week. Ooh, that's exciting.
Julie, do I have your phone number? Because you're going to be getting those pictures. Anybody who wants the pictures, I'll give them to everyone. I'm a little oversharer when it comes to food. But I'm really excited about the retreat, right? The retreats, quite honestly, right? We've got a number of them coming up. And I love the idea of taking the reins and deciding what the future is going to be, right? We all have whatever our current situation is, and to be able to recognize, hey, this could be even better, and then to go ahead and make the steps to accomplish it, that'll make 2022 fabulous.
And I also am starting to see this event where everybody cooks their own challah bread, right? And we make it this team building exercise. I'm telling you, there's something about it. I don't know what it is, but it's magical.
Yeah, I'm on board. No problem.
I think that's something that we do. We should.
Yep. Look at that.
All right, world. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for putting up with me again. And I love you all. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Janinne. And goodbye, world.